Hello, welcome back. Today is a lesson on manners and etiquette. But before we begin, let me introduce myself. I am Sir Raven, CEO of BLX. We are an organization about empowering the kink, leather, LGBTQ community through sex education or safer sex education, wellness through art, as well as community conversations around topics that concern this community. Again, I am Sir Raven. Welcome. Let me first begin by saying manners, the definition of manners, is being sensitive, aware of the feelings of others. If you have that awareness, you have good manners, no matter what fork you use. Emily Post, who I should point out to you, was an author, but she was also a socialite. So take that the way you will. Etiquette, on the other hand, is a set of rules or customs that dictate how people should behave in certain social or professional situations. It is a code of polite conduct that's meant to make people feel comfortable and avoid offending or annoying others. So I will be using manners and etiquette interchangeably. I just want you to have that definition and to hold that while we go through this lesson today. There are different codes of conduct in different communities, and these will dictate or direct what kind of etiquette or what kind of manners you should be applying. You will follow if you are new to a community or if you're an old hat at the community. You might know someone in said community that can walk you through those types of manners or how one is supposed to behave or what is acceptable in the community. And you may not. For instance, in the leather BDSM kink community, we have etiquette or a way that one should behave in the community. If you have someone that walks you through it, that's great. Or you may find that there is a manual or a list that you can read ahead of time that can help you with how you move within the community. You may have some resources, which is great. But if all else fails, hopefully you will be able to fall back on your manners. Those manners you might have acquired from family or friends, and you can fall back on those or just be observant in a space and you'll see how things are moving. Within the leather BDSM kink community, there are some rules of etiquette. I'm not saying that what I am saying is written in stone. It's not, but it is my experience. Some of what I'll say might sound like common sense, but let's not assume that everybody has those kinds of things. In the play space or dungeon, upon entering, one should enter quietly. One should not be loud because you may be messing up the vibe of the dungeon or the play space, or even the workshop that might be going on. You may be walking into a workshop and you don't want to make too much noise because you came late. This is New York, but also part of etiquette is showing up on time. You don't want to come into a space making noise and being a distraction. So please be as quiet as you possibly can. These are in no particular order. While in the space, do be observant. It might be a little dark, like in a dungeon or a play space. So take a moment to observe where you are walking and walk into, because you don't want to walk into someone's scene, you don't want to knock over a table or something like this. So really try to be observant about the space that you're in. And like I said, it may be a little bit dark, but you get it. While observing a scene, do not talk loud unless that has been negotiated. So if you're part of a scene in a negotiation with someone, egging someone on and those kinds of things, that's great. But if you are there to observe a scene, observe it. We don't need you to be giving commentary about, what's being done and how it could be done better and you've seen it been done this way. 3A, do keep your distance from the scene. Again, you want to be observant of where you were standing, what's happening. I have had instances of flogging in a play space, and people were just walking around and walking behind me, and I'm hitting them with the flogger or hitting them with the whip because they're not paying attention. It has been, I've learned from that if I am doing something like that, I usually ask the dungeon monitor or the organization to put out some caution tape, or if I bring my own caution tape, I put it out so that I can like corner off my area. 4, if you are curious and have questions about any part of the scene, do not ask them, do not ask any of the parties during the scene. You may see something you're maybe curious about and you want to know something about that. That is not the time for you to be inserting yourself. The etiquette might be that afterwards, when the scene is over, and they are off to the side, or they are like, had a moment to do whatever they need to do for themselves, you might go up to them and say, hey, do you have a moment? Can I ask you a question about X, Y, and Z? They may say yes, but if they say no, be gracious about it and move on. Right? Do not touch people's gear. And by gear, I mean anything that we call play. I'm not playing when I'm doing it. I'm working your ass over because I'm putting in work. But we call it play. And we call our gear toys. They're not really toys, they're like gear. Do not touch someone's gear. Do not touch someone's implements. They may be on the table, they may be wherever. You should not walk up to anything and touch it, because if you didn't bring it in, it's not yours to be touching. Likewise, even the people they may be playing with or scening with, those people, you shouldn't go up to people and touch. Um, you may want to be gracious later on, maybe to say, hey, I saw this thing. Can we discuss it? Can I see it? Can I touch it? Whatever. They're not handing it to you, and the answer may be no. Be gracious about it. Take that and move on. If you are observing a scene and it is something that is making you uncomfortable, remove yourself quietly. You do not have to stay there and make it about you. Some things you just may not be into, and that's fine, right? Sometimes you see things that may be outside of your comfort zone, and you may even hear things that are outside of your comfort zone. If you do, remove yourself. So in this part of the dungeon, they're doing a certain thing, and this may be triggering for you. Remove yourself. Step off to the side. Go someplace else. It's okay. Uh, if you think someone's going too far in the scene, go and speak to a dungeon monitor. You don't know if they have said something to the dungeon monitor ahead of time. So you don't need to break up a scene. You don't know what's been negotiated. You don't know any of those things. And again, the dungeon monitor will handle that situation, 1, and or 2, if it's too much for you, remove yourself from that area. It is okay. Because you don't know what has been negotiated within the scene, don't assume that you should be inserting yourself in a scene afterwards to find out if anybody needs anything. So, for instance, the scene may be over and the bottom may have been laying on the table or sitting down or whatever, and the top is off maybe to a little bit over here doing something. This is not your time to insert yourself and ask, do you need anything? Because you don't know if you're inserting yourself in their scene and you don't know what they have negotiated. Basically, mind your business. Even if your intentions are really good, and I'm hoping that they are, you're still inserting yourself into someone's scene, and that's just not cool. If you're in the play space or the dungeon and get to use equipment, don't use it all night. Don't hog all of the equipment. Some spaces, depending, may have 2 or 3 St. Andrews courses. and they all may be used. Okay, cool. You don't have to use it all night. There may be one spanking bench. Folks these days think, rigging is all the rave, and there may be one space for that to happen. Don't use it all night because other people may want to use it or use the equipment, but now you're hogging it. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe is good enough time for you to do what you need to do. If you need anything longer, you should have stayed home. Don't use the equipment and hog the equipment from other people. We all have to share. And this is the last one. Clean the equipment after you've used it. Hopefully, you might have cleaned it before you used it. But likewise, if you're using equipment, you should. And sometimes spaces have stuff to clean the equipment with. I tend to bring my own. That's just me. Spaces usually have their own disinfectants to clean up the space or things to dispose of things that we're using. If that's the case, please leave the equipment clean after you've used it for 30, 45 minutes, whether there was sweating or whatever, there might not, you are responsible to clean that equipment for the next person to use. And if you're cleaning that equipment and it's like wet and it has to dry off, you should be there to make sure it's drying. If people are around and they're going to use it next, you can let them know it's still wet. I cleaned it off because they're watching you, hopefully. I cleaned it off. It's still a little bit wet. Give it some time and it's all yours. Enjoy. These are a few tips, not in any order, but things to think about when one is coming into a new environment, and or if you are not new to leather, BDSM, or kink and coming into those spaces, you should still have some kind of manners, some kind of etiquette to coming into spaces like that. But what do I know? I'm just a humble leather dyke. The lesson for today, since this is a lesson on manners and etiquette, is maybe in the comments, let me know if I've missed anything, if you've ever come across something like this, and how did you correct somebody when they did do a faux pas, as it's called, and made a mistake? How was that received? And if you made that mistake, what did you learn from it? Because sometimes we make mistakes and we have to learn as well. Put it in the comments. If you like what I do here on this channel, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you don't like what I do, share, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, peace.